Good evening. I'm Hugh Ross. I'm a member of the Social Studies Department here at Salisbury Composite, and I'm here for the next 15 minutes to talk to you about social studies at Salisbury or in Alberta Ed generally. Social studies, in case you aren't aware, is the black sheep of the academic family. We're the subject that everyone loves 10 years after they graduate, but while they're at Salisbury, it's up to us to try to make you like it if you don't like it already. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk you through the three different streams that we offer in grade 10, namely the 10-1, the 10-2, and the 10-1H streams. We'll talk a bit about what the content of the course is, and we'll talk about the requirements as well as prerequisites that are necessary to go on to the next level. So the first course that we offer at Salisbury or at any Alberta high school is Social 10-1. Now the 10-1 program is designed to be a post-secondary prep program for students that are interested in going on to next level education after grade 12. So we begin the 10-1 program with the idea that our students are going on to 20-1, are going on to 30-1, and will need certain types of skills in order to have success at both the high school as well as the post-secondary level. 10-1, as is grade 11 and 12, is a 5-credit course, and whether or not it's semestered or quartered, depending on the year that we're looking at, will mean that the students will get approximately 125 hours of instruction in this course in order to earn 5 credits in the subject. The first question that we're often faced with is what's the difference between 10-1 and 10-2? And the simple answer is that 10-1 is a more academic course than the 10-2. And other than that, it's largely distinctions in assessment that separate 10-1 from 10-2. The content is relatively similar in both of these streams, in that it's focusing on the issue of globalization in the world, globalization within Canada, globalization within the community. The focus on the 10-2 stream is that we tend to start with the individual and then branch out to the macro level, whereas in the 10-1, we start often at the macro level, at the global level, and then we break it back and we bring it back to the individual. But a lot of this is determined by the nature of the teacher in the course at the time. The big push behind globalization is the same focus that the K-9 social studies curriculum has, and that is to have students explore and identify multiple perspectives on this particular issue, which is to what extent should we embrace globalization, and look at the impact that these forces contained within globalization, cultural globalization, economic globalization, political globalization, social globalization, and so forth, the impact that those have on both the individual, the region, as well as the international level. The 10-1 course is focused again on that student that is interested in post-secondary education. Now the 10-2 course is also a 5-credit course. The prerequisite that we suggest for students going on to 10-2 is less than 60% in social studies, grade 9 social studies. So for students wanting to go into 10-1, it's suggested that they have grades above 65% in grade 9 social studies. For social studies 10-2, it's the students that are less than 65%. With regards to the assessments, they are focused on fairly straightforward writing tasks. So we tend to focus on the paragraph at the 10-2 level as opposed to the 10-1 level, where we're focusing more on multiple paragraphs and essays. And we start with a premise at the 10-2 level that our students have not completed complete essays and therefore are in the process of putting together multi-paragraph responses. And so we start off with the student knows how to write a sentence, and we're going to build onto that so that they're writing more and more paragraphs by the end of the course. The 10-2 program leads to the 20-2, leads to the 30-2 program, and we encourage our students as early as grade 10 to know what level of programming they need in order to get to the post-secondary level of education that they want to go to. For example, the 30-2 program is a requirement for graduation, but for a lot of our students that are going on to engineering, they don't need Social 30-1. So therefore, what they may opt to take is Social 30-2 in order to satisfy the social studies graduation requirement, but at the same time allow themselves more time to concentrate on academic areas. The 10-2 program is also very much focused on basic text, comprehension of text, with the idea that if students are picking up on the comprehension of text, they're then eligible or they're then qualified to start looking at text at a much higher level. However, we assume that our students that are coming into this program are still in need of a lot of foundational skills at the grade 10 level. And so we don't want to start them off with the understanding that they are capable of writing multi-paragraph essays. Visual literacy is a big part of any kind of social studies, whether it's the 10-1, 10-2, or the 10-1 honors program. And therefore, there is a lot of political cartooning, a lot of graphs, a lot of charts, a lot of photographs, and a lot of short video that goes along with this course so as to develop those visual literacy skills. The final strand that we have within the grade 10 curriculum is the Social Studies 10-1 honors program. This program is an honors program, and so therefore students that are entering in this program will have an 80% in grade 9 social studies. Furthermore, students that are planning on going on to the IB programming in grade 11 and 12 will have 80% in 10-1H in order to go on. As far as the course itself is concerned, qualitatively, as far as the content is concerned, it's identical to the 10-1 curriculum. As far as most of the formal assessments are concerned, those are also identical to the 10-1 curriculum. The differences that we see between honors programming and regular programming at the 10-1 level is the depth of study that the honors students embark upon, and this would include both enhanced materials as well as another focus on research and the documentation skills that we don't undertake at the 10-1 or at the 10-2 level. The 10-1 honors program is also very much focused on the cohort, and so for students that are going into honors program, and particularly within social studies, these students are like-minded individuals. They tend to be highly motivated. They tend to want to get the best possible preparation they can for post-secondary education. And they're not necessarily competitive with each other, but they're certainly competitive with their averages so that they are coming into post-secondary education as well prepared as they possibly can be. The research activities that are taking place in 10-1 are also different from the research activities in the 10-1H program are different than the 10-1 program, in that the content that students are looking at is more academically advanced and in many cases more socially mature because of the nature of the students that are in the program. What the 10-1H student looks like is a student that is eager to learn, interested in learning, and is hardworking. And we really have to emphasize the hardworking aspect as well as the academically motivated aspect, because a great many students who are naturally bright and are academically inclined, but may not have the work habits to really capitalize and best exploit those academic talents, are ones that tend not to do well in this program. So we can emphasize hard work as much as academic focus in this program. As far as the flow chart is concerned, we've mentioned that already, but very much what the honors programming does is it takes us from 10-1H to 21 IB to 30-1 history IB, which is an 8-credit course at the grade 12 level. So for a student to go into 20-1 IB, it's necessary for them to take the 10-1 H program. For students that are interested in a solid academic program, they take the 10-1 and embark upon the 10-1, 21, 30-1 path. And for students that begin at the 10-2 level, they are then locked into the -2 track until grade 12, and then upon successful completion of the 30-2 program, they can then take 30-1. We try to encourage our students to take the most challenging program that they can, because it's much easier to drop down a track than it is to attempt to come back up a track between grade 10 and grade 11. Okay, so we're open for questions and answers now. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to chime in.
Hi, Mr. Ross. We do have a question for you. Is social a requirement for graduation here at Salisbury and Alberta?
Yes, it is. There's a way to get around that. If you want to graduate from Alberta, you will need 15 credits of social at the grade 10, grade 11, and grade 12 level, including writing a diploma exam in 30-1 or 30-2.
Another question that has come up from students is, how much time would you be spending looking at current events in social studies?
Well, current events is an embedded part of the program. So there's an expectation that current events should be looked at multiple times per week, perhaps at least 3 out of 5 days. This will vary from teacher to teacher, but most teachers will take a segment of every day, either looking at current events as a standalone component to their class, or they'll thread current events throughout the content that they teach. And so students will be getting a very good past-present dialogue in any social studies classroom on generally any given day. We don't want to turn this social studies course into a history course. It is very much designed to be relevant to the contemporary world, as well as promote knowledge of that historical world.
Thank you. I think you actually partially answered the next question, which was, how does social studies relate to like the personal life of a grade 10 student?
It's what the student decides to bring into the program, and much like any other academic subject, garbage in, garbage out. If the student comes in and he chooses not to be engaged in the content, then for him to expect a decent academic return on that is not realistic. Whereas students that come in and are engaged with the content and do realize that they live in a world that they're fundamentally connected to, very much a globalized world, the students are that are able to internalize the content and thus do much better when it comes to formal assessments.
Thank you. We have just another minute or so here. Do you have anything you want to share with the incoming grade 10s about what you love about teaching social and are hoping that they will be able to learn?
Social study changes every day. There's not a social studies teacher out there that can laminate a lesson plan, so to speak, and expect that that'll carry out for a couple of years. Instead, because the world is constantly changing, it means that the lessons are constantly changing as well, and the need to integrate that new content into historical content or into theoretical content is what keeps me coming back every day. Social studies, far and away, I think, is the most dynamic of the curriculum out there, and that's why I love teaching it, is it forces me to stay on top of these things and to stay connected with the world.
That is, do you need to take social to graduate?
Social studies 30 is a requirement for graduation in Alberta. So that means that students are required to take either social studies 30-1 or 30-2 and the attached diploma examination in order to get the credits for graduation in this province. So that means that a student would have to complete 15 credits of social studies at the 10, 20, and 30 level in order to successfully graduate.
Mr. Ross, can you give some examples of some topics that students will be studying in grade 10 with you?
In grade 10, it's very much a soup to nuts economic history of the world, from first contact of Europeans with First Nations people of all over the world, right up until the present day. And so if we're looking for an approximate date, Columbus's first contact with the First Nations people, all the way up until the present, is what we take for our 500 years swath of history. And what we're looking at that time are the political, economic, religious, military, social impacts of interactions between groups of people across the globe, with a strong focus on the contact that takes place between Western cultures and First Nations cultures.
I do have a question that has come up on our Q&A. Are there any substitutes for taking social? Is there any other course that a student could take instead of social, is what I think that question is asking us.
That's a great question for our counseling department. As far as a social studies teacher is concerned, there's no substitute for social studies. Nothing at all. No math, no English, no science course can replace social studies. Social studies course is it's the course that everyone has to have by the time they're 30 years old, because if you're not doing it now, you're going to be doing it later anyway, both academically and in real world terms.
Can you share with the students, what are some of the things you're very passionate about when you're teaching social studies?
I'm passionate about history. I'm passionate about historical forces. I'm passionate about how the past has come to influence the present. I'm passionate about how the present is a reflection of the past. I don't look at current events through any kind of lens except as a mirror into our time, and I always I'm constantly drawn back to how the events of the present have precedents in the past, or how they reflect past events. And so I look very much at social studies as a cyclical study of history, with patterns repeating themselves. And I try to encourage my students to look at present day events as a reflection of what has happened in years before the present day.